Okay, next news story of the week. Fable, the big first-party exclusive coming to PC and Xbox consoles and probably other ones as well, who knows. It's been delayed until 2026. And I would say if the game isn't ready, it should be they should wait with it. They should get it right first time. Probably there are strategic advantages to doing this in the face of Grand Theft Auto 6 still presumably arriving later this year. John, I'm going to go to you on this one. We also got to see some, snippets of new gameplay, right?
Yeah, and the clips look great. I mean, it's definitely shaping up well, as you would expect. I think they're making the right choice here in so much as if you're bringing back a franchise like this, you got to get it right. And one of the things that Microsoft published games have seemingly struggled with lately is releasing stuff a little too hot. With some issues out of the gate, right? And they need this to be good. And I have every faith that they can pull this off. Playground Games has a phenomenal track record, right? But this is the first time they've made a game like this. They've been so focused on these open world racing games. It's a very different project for them. I think it's probably coming along well, but yeah, clearly more time is required to get it up to the level of polish that I think people would expect and hope for from a new Fable game by Playground Games, especially. And yeah, there's a little bit of game. So the gameplay footage, the pre-alpha footage they showed is very interesting in that it feels kind of random, right? Like it's just like little snippets of B-roll kind of stuck together rather than presenting it in a trailer form or any sort of way where it feels like it would be more accessible to a wider audience. They just kind of dropped this footage, which I thought was interesting, but it looks good. I'm especially impressed with the density of the various forest environments and just everything going on in those scenes. It looks very, very solid in that sense. So I'll be curious to see where it goes. I was never a big fan of the older Fable titles. I think they're well made. I never liked the visual design of those games. I thought the characters were like just horrendously ugly. I think it was intentional, but just bad looking in a lot of ways. This to me is a lot more appealing given Playground's legacy, and just I'm curious to see where they go with this. So I remain excited. And then I assume that we'll get the PlayStation 5 release date sometime after. I was kidding. we probably will.
You probably will, right? I mean, that's the point. The new Microsoft, there's, quote unquote, no red lines, as they say. But yeah, Oliver, thoughts on this?
Yeah, one of the funny things I did note about this is that new gameplay does look pretty good, but unfortunately it's just a 1080p 60 encode on the various sites, which I think is because they're ripping it from the official Xbox podcast, which is only produced at 1080p 60. That's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. If you're going to release footage of a game on YouTube, please provide a 4K 60 encode, because YouTube tends to mangle that and it makes the game probably look a little bit less compelling than it otherwise does. I personally didn't expect them to make 2025 because they haven't shown off much until now, basically. And what they have shown off in particular has been like a lot of carefully crafted cinematic content, just like what they were showing in like 2024, 2023. Seemed kind of early, no real gameplay, cinematics with like Richard Iowad walking through gameplay spaces. And, even I saw some comments from some CG artists at Playground saying, oh, we made this sequence just for this trailer. And of course, that's the case. That's often the case with these trailers. But when you're not showing off anything but this carefully curated cinematic content, it does send the message that, it's still in the oven for a little bit longer, I would say. It is kind of interesting here. Microsoft tends to announce a lot of these games pretty far out in terms of time from announcement to release. I think Fable was announced back in 2020, I think, with that initial trailer. It was really, really early. So, I would like to see them tighten up that time period perhaps, or adopt a more Sony-like approach where really Sony tends to announce stuff with about a year left, potentially, or 6 months left, typically, except for like really big titles.
What can I say? I thought the footage that we did see, I mean, it did actually seem to be gameplay, right? It looked pretty good. I thought the quality of the visuals was fantastic. So what can I say? I'm hugely looking forward to this. And as you say, the quality of Playground Games is beyond measure, really. And with that in mind, John, I was also thinking about the delay to Avowed. I mean, you played that game. Do you think that delay paid off in terms of polish? Because it did seem to be a really tight game when it came out, right?
Yeah, Avowed. So that's an interesting one. I did play Avowed and still playing Avowed, and I quite like it actually. And I think it turned out really great. Compared to everything that that studio had been known for, it was significantly more polished. But I feel like their approach to game design is fundamentally very different than the way Playground Games has worked in the past. Playground obviously focused on racing games, but their experiences have been so tightly polished to perfection. I feel like in general, like when you sit down to play Forza Horizon, it just oozes that quality and polish in a way. Whereas with, obviously with Avowed, that studio's history is a little less polished, if you will. I actually tried to load up Fallout New Vegas for that video, and it just immediately crashes now.
Right.
So,
okay. Wow.
Which I'm sure there's workarounds for that, but I just thought it was funny. Like, oh, yep, this lives up to its reputation. So, but yeah, clearly that extra time paid off. Avowed shipped in a pretty good state, not perfect, but it's pretty darn polished for that studio for sure. But I think with Playground, they've earned this sort of like, I guess any delay that they deem required to hit their level of polish, I feel like people would be rightfully trust them on that, right? Mm-hmm. Like they've shown time and again that they can deliver these extremely polished games. So if they're going to say, hey, we need this extra time in order to hit our target, believe them. So I'm happy that they're doing it.
Yeah. It is quite interesting, though, that historically Playground and Turn 10 were able to, produce brand new games every couple of years. That time is long since past now, and probably for the best, really.
Yeah, they were really pushing that for a while. And also, I feel like I love the Forza Horizon series, but I feel like once they hit 5, it's like you can really see that each title was very much building upon the last very directly. And I feel like they can't just keep doing that forever. Otherwise, you risk sort of burning people out on the formula. And so there's that on the Forza side. But then, of course, this is a new game, very different than anything they've made before. So that's also challenging. But yeah, that's true, though. For a while, they had this whole lockstep thing where it was like, there was a Forza Motorsport one year, and then they would follow it up with a Horizon game, I think. Or at least it felt like it was maybe every 2 or 3 years you would get a new one of those.
Yeah, I would say though, I do like that they're taking their time with their various titles.
Yeah.
But I also do miss the period when you could expect a new Forza Horizon game every 2 years. That's something I really did enjoy back in the past. And it's actually been over 3 years since Forza Horizon 5 came out, and there still isn't an announcement for Forza Horizon 6, which is totally unprecedented in series history. Now, of course, I understand why it would take them so much longer to produce a title on this generation of hardware with a game made for this generation of platform here. But, I would like to see, hopefully, an announcement of that title maybe this year and a release at some point in the near future, hopefully, for that game.
I assume that they've had to, they've never done this sort of split development before, right?
That's true, yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of people that worked on these games are working on Fable, but I would assume they're also working on something Horizon-based as well in the background.
I think the issue with Forza Horizon was they had this what you might call a sort of iterative journey between each of the series entries there. And the extent to which it was iteration was masked by the change in location, right? Because it just transformed the feel of the game.
Yep.
Maybe once they reached Forza Horizon 5, they thought, right, okay, it's probably time for revolution, not evolution, which I think is probably the right approach. There's also the fact that a lot of the key members of Forza Horizon 5 actually left to set up their own studio.
That's
Maverick.
Right, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Which probably added a layer of complexity. But even so, it's great to see that there is a new Playground game on the horizon, and just have to wait a bit longer for it.